Hey there folks, it's Swank Ivy. Time for another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 56. And this time I'm going to be covering a comment that I received from one of my followers on YouTube here. And they asked me, could I please address the difference between sexual and romantic attraction? I will give you first this disclaimer that as a person who identifies as both asexual and aromantic, I don't really know that I'm the best person to tell you how those two things are different, since I don't experience either one. And I will give you guys an open invitation that if you're one of those people who experiences one of these things and not the other, if you want to explain in the comments, how that's different for you, share your experience, you're welcome to do that, and maybe some of y'all can connect with each other through the comments on this video. But I will do my best to describe it as I understand it from interacting with thousands of other asexual people in the community, and just as I understand it as an academic concept. So at the simplest level, of course, sexual attraction is about finding someone sexually attractive. You see a person, or you're experiencing someone's presence, and you feel a sexual attraction to them. And most people will describe sexual attraction as, a desire to have sex with someone, even if you realistically wouldn't. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're sexually attracted to someone, that is someone you would have sex with, just if you have moral objections to it, or you don't want to have sex with anybody at that time in your life. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean just because you find someone sexy and want to have sex with them that you would, but something about a person makes you feel sexually attracted to them, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with maybe relationships, or I'm not going to say that it's not about their personality, because I've heard people say, a personality can turn a person on. It's not just about a body. It's not necessarily just you can look at someone and say, I'm sexually attracted to someone. It might be their voice, it might be the way that they talk to you, it might be their interests it makes you feel sexually attracted to them. So, it's not just a physical thing necessarily. Although there are a lot of people out there who say, I can look at someone and say, that's a sexually attractive person, and I am sexually attracted to them, without knowing anything about them. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything if, you can look at someone and say, yes, I'm sexually attracted to that person, or if you need a little more before you find yourself being sexually attracted to them. But, I think that the point is that you can probably connect that sexual attraction to maybe arousal, to desires for that person that are associated with sex somehow. And I know also that sexual arousal is different from sexual attraction. You don't necessarily get aroused just because you find someone attractive. If you start splitting hairs like this, it can get really complicated, but the only reason that it sounds unnecessarily complicated, I think, is that most people experience all of those things together. And if they find someone sexually attractive, it goes hand in hand with being aroused by them and probably wanting to have sex with them. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of those things will happen every time someone is sexually attractive, but they do tend to be related to each other, and just because they aren't always together doesn't mean they aren't often together. And we're kind of talking about, for the typical population that experiences pretty typical sexual attraction in their lives, these things seem less complicated because they happen predictably. And for those of us who only experience certain aspects of those, I think we have a tendency to want to break it down more, because maybe we're not understanding why this thing we've been told is associated with this other thing. They aren't both happening, and we're like calling into question whether this is really what we think it is because it didn't come with that. So associated with that, I'll talk about romance. Romantic attraction, now that's often thought to be less physical. It's also associated with relationships. And I gotta be very careful with how I say this, because not all relationships are romantic, and of course my best relationships with other people are friendships, and some people who are aromantic still want a relationship with someone that isn't romantic. So you've probably heard of queer platonic relationships if you've watched my videos. Some people may want that kind of relationship with another person, but they're still not finding them romantically attractive. And this is again kind of where my experience is going to fail me in describing it properly, because I can't really tell you what it's like. But from what I've heard, it is often associated with, I want to have a relationship with that person. I feel romantically about them, whatever that is to you. For some people, that means I love them. For some people, it means I love them in a specific way that feels different from the way I love my friends or my family. Sometimes it is like, I want to do these romantic gestures with them. I want to get them Valentine's Day presents. I want to kiss them. I want to cuddle with them. I want to build a life with them. All of these things are possibilities. They don't necessarily define romance, because again, you might want some of those things and not others. But I guess traditionally, romantic attraction is sort of a warm, fuzzy feeling that you feel for another person that puts them in this kind of shiny category for you, where you say, that person is really special in this particular flavor for me. And since I'm an aromantic person, I can't really tell you what that flavor tastes like. But based on the way other people describe it, I feel pretty confident in saying that I haven't experienced it. And the love that I have for other people feels pretty friendly. And so I'm going to say some other things about romance where they don't apply to all relationships. A lot of times people who are monogamous feel sort of possessive of the people that they're romantically attracted to, and they want to have a monogamous relationship, a very exclusive relationship with that person, where they grant access to them for physical barriers they're allowed to cross, for emotional barriers they're allowed to cross. They may have access to certain aspects of their life that they don't grant to other people. And sometimes if they're less traditional about their relationships, they may share that with multiple people, or there may be some thresholds that they are like more liberal with other people crossing, but there are certain ones that they only grant to a person that they have a romantic relationship with, or that they have romantic attraction to. And I will also say that I've heard of some folks in the community who say, I experience romantic attraction to other people, but that I don't want a relationship with them. Being romantically attracted to someone does not necessarily mean that you are ready to be in a relationship with them, or that you even like them that way, that maybe there are deal breakers associated with them that make it so that, oh, I can never have a relationship with that person. Maybe they want kids and you don't. Maybe you have different religions. Maybe you have just certain feelings about them. Maybe you don't like the way they smell. I mean, it could be anything that makes you say, you know what, that's a deal breaker for me, and I don't want to be with that person as a life partner, but maybe I'm still romantically attracted to them. So, I've been rambling for a while about this, saying how this is not necessarily that, and these two things don't necessarily go together, but they're thought of as related. It sounds complicated because it is. And if you really put a magnifying glass on any relationship, even if it's pretty traditional, heterosexual, monogamous, sexual, romantic relationship that ends in matrimony and children and typical existence, you put a magnifying glass on them and you'll find some quirks, you'll find some things they do differently. For example, my grandparents, my dad's parents, were, they had kind of a really amazing relationship, and everybody kind of was amazed that even into their old age they seemed like, in some ways, like newlyweds, that they were still so much in love with each other. But if you looked at their relationship, they actually had a lot of independence from each other. They had separate careers, they even slept in separate beds, and it didn't mean they loved each other less, but they valued their independence and their individuality, I think, more than some people seem to expect for monogamous married couples. And if you looked at them and you'd say, huh, that's kind of strange. If you looked at that and then still saw that their relationship was so successful, and you still called into question its authenticity because you're like, well, why wouldn't they sleep in the same bed? They must be hiding something. They must be afraid of intimacy. Like, that's not how this works. They get to make personal decisions about how they want to express their relationship and their love for each other. And for them, it involved a lot more independence than you typically see. There are a lot of relationships like that. Most of the people that you know are probably would easily be able to identify one or two things about their relationship that's a little bit atypical, and it doesn't change the labels that they use. It doesn't change whether their romance is a romance. It doesn't change whether they're sexually attracted to each other, but there may be some aspect of their marriage or their romantic relationship, their time with each other, their expression of intimacy, their ways of negotiating sexual intimacy. These are all things that are not a given when you get married to someone or you enter a relationship. You still have to talk about them, even if your relationship is pretty typical. So for those of us who want to be in relationships that are not necessarily traditionally romantic or may not be romantic at all, we'll often feel a little bit lost about how to navigate those because there are so few maps for them. There are so few healthy modelings of them. You don't see couples like you may want to be part of. You may not see triads or larger poly groups that are represented the way that seems like a dream to you. You're just not going to see them on TV or in your media. So you start to feel like, do I even have something valid? Do I want something impossible? Does what I want even have a name? Well, we have to figure out the language together when there are situations that we don't have somebody else's blueprint for how they're supposed to go. But it's also sort of freeing, because that means, once you realize, okay, I don't really fit into this framework, then you're kind of free to say, well, it can be whatever I want. I can pick and choose from this candy store full of bins of stuff that looks yummy to me, and I can say I want 3 ounces of that, and I don't like the Red Hots, but I like the Skittles. You can say which things that you want in your candy mix, and you don't have to accept that somebody says you have to like Red Hots if you like candy. So I hope that sheds some light on it, but I strongly suspect that I also said some confusing and maybe contradictory stuff here, and it's kind of on purpose because I think it is a good reflection of how messy and confusing human relationships can be. So anyway, if anybody has any thoughts to share, go ahead and put them in the comments. And, obviously I don't always read hateful letters on my Letters to an Asexual series. I'm happy to answer questions and address topics that, you want my opinions on. If you want to contact me privately or leave it into my comments publicly, I may make a video about it if I feel like I have enough to say about that thing. So that'll wrap it up for this one, and I will see y'all next time.